Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to Group and welcome back. We are in the second week of a series that we've been calling Timeout because one, it's March Madness, basketball's on, lots of sports and stuff. But there are times in our life that we just need to hit the old
Timeout.
blow the whistle, say timeout.
Yep.
So that's the series we're in. I hope it's very beneficial to you guys. And in Group, I think you can have some really honest conversations about this stuff.
Yeah, so this week on Sunday, we talked about something we all kind of struggle with is that tension between doing things and taking time to be with Jesus. And there's that tension of how do I make this time, but I got all this stuff I need to do, and it's just this back and forth that we really feel in our life.
Yeah, because we're always in motion. We're always trying to keep up. We're always trying to get the to-do list done. But the secret to like spiritual health isn't doing more,
Right?
Actually, it's probably actually hitting a timeout button and going, hey, let's pause.
Take a pause. We looked at a story and Luke this week about Mary and Martha. It's in Luke chapter 10. You guys will be able to read that together. So there's two sisters who have two different approaches, and Jesus teaches them one very powerful lesson.
Yeah, and they're good friends. And so when Jesus comes into town, Martha probably really has the gift of hospitality. And so when she knows that Jesus is coming to town, she goes all out. She's this amazing host and says, okay, I'm going to have this big dinner because Jesus is coming into my house.
I mean, everybody needs a Martha in their life, though, right? Like those people who just want to do big dinners. I love a good dinner.
Yeah.
So you need a Martha in your life. But what she does though is that she starts working. She's got this dinner. She's doing all the details. She's making sure it's Jesus. Everything is perfect.
Yep. And so she's working on all these details, but then there's her sister Mary, who when Jesus comes in, and Jesus is super relational. Everybody gathers into this, probably like your living room, and they're sitting around. And what does Mary do? Mary literally sits right down at the feet of Jesus and wants to listen and spend time with him.
I feel like we all have that sibling. Just doesn't want to do any of the work, right? No, that's not it. That's not it. So Mary's sitting there, and Martha gets so upset. She goes to Jesus and says, it's in Luke 10:40. She says, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair that my sister sits here while I do the work? It's like my kids coming to me and saying, well, Austin never does anything right. Like he's not doing the dishes. He's not helping me. And so this is Martha crying to Jesus that Mary's not helping.
Yeah, and Jesus looks at Martha, and then it's interesting. This doesn't happen very often in Scripture. He uses a slight rebuke because he goes, Martha, Martha, two words. So most theologians would say that was kind of a very gentle rebuke, a little bit of a wake-up call to let her know, hey, I know you're upset about the details, but...
That's the tension that now shows up in this story, which is the tension we feel. There's the responsibilities, we have schedules, and we have all these things that need to get done. And that's where Martha's sitting. He's like, but Jesus, there's all these things that need to get done. But Jesus is saying something completely different in this moment.
Yeah, he's not saying, Martha, you shouldn't have fixed food. Yeah. He's not saying, don't feed us. In fact, he's not saying, Martha, you should never cook ever again. He's saying what's happening in this very moment. He says, don't let what's very urgent right now push away what's really important. And so there's this dinner. Yeah, there's details in the dinner, but he's like, don't worry about that because right now what's important is relationship with me and this time together.
Yeah. So that helps. That leads us to like recognizing misplaced activity. Because let's be real, like when we get busy, we start getting distracted, we get anxious, we get frustrated because of all the things that we have to do.
Yeah, let's pause for a second. I think in Sunday we talked a little bit about this. A lot of times we read this story and we just think about Mary versus Martha.
Yeah.
And instead of like pitting two people against each other.
Either or.
It's really not, I don't think Jesus told this story because it's about the people. It was about the problem of the tension.
Yeah.
And you and I, we will be able to process this better if we step out of the who was right, Martha or Mary. Yeah. And it's not about Martha and Mary. It's not about the people. It's about the problem of tension of our activity and our pausing. And so, I mean, if you guys could go, am I a Martha person or a Mary person? It's not about that.
No, yeah, correct.
We all are, right?
Yeah, we're both.
There's times in my life I'm very Mary, and there's times in my life I'm very Martha. And Jesus isn't saying be one or the other. He's saying there's this tension.
Yeah, which leads him like it's this. He doesn't want us running on empty. Like he actually wants us working with him, not
Yeah.
just for him.
Yeah, that's good.
It's that, hey, you got to spend time with me when you have these moments, and that was what Martha, I think, was missing in the moment. It's just that, hey, take this moment. Don't stop working for me, but take the moments to spend with me.
Yeah, and
Which is so important.
we can't play the comparison game.
Yeah.
We can't look around and go, well, look how hard they're working. I need to keep up with them. Or look how nice of an event they held, or that dinner. Last time we went to their house, they went all out.
All the
We're
stuff.
coming to our house, so we're going all out, and we get so busy and distracted that it's like, have we fed ourselves spiritually?
Yeah.
Or are we comparing what are other people doing?
Yeah. That's good. So that led us to talking about the power of the pause on
Yeah.
Sunday. And so that's how we reset. We stop and focus on what really matters.
You got to call it time
Take
out.
the time out.
You have to call a timeout, and the pause, like we said, our lives get so full and so busy. So how do we actually reset and say, okay, all right, we're feeling overwhelmed. Everything's full. If you remember, we're like, life is full. We have to hit pause. We have to hit some time out. So we pause, right?
Yeah. Looked at a story in 2 Samuel.
Yeah.
Actually.
So then we said, okay, so back in the Old Testament, we bounced out of Mary and Martha and said, in the Old Testament, there was a time where King David was moving the Ark of the Covenant. In fact, like someone, and the scripture doesn't say if they were too much in a hurry, they stumbled, they were wanting to get home or whatever.
Yeah.
But whatever happened, somebody reached out to grab the Ark because it was about to fall, and no one was supposed to touch the Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
They probably meant well.
Yeah, they meant well, but there was these poles that they used to carry it. But if you touch the ark itself, but
So, like-
something's happening here.
So like Martha meant well,
Yeah,
and she was outside of what the plan of what God wanted in that moment, like
Yeah.
just relational time.
Yep.
So this person meant well, grabs to steady the ark, and then he dies because he's not supposed to touch the ark of the present.
Yeah.
So anyway, so King David has to reset and say, "There's a better way of doing this."
took a timeout, recoached his guys a little bit.
He did. He took a time out and he said, "This is the proper way to move the Ark of the Covenant." In every 6 steps, they stopped and they killed a bull and they sacrificed and they had this worship. 6 steps.
Yeah.
They weren't going across the room.
No,
This was a long journey, and every 6 steps they hit time out and
and made a sacrifice
they
to
did
God,
they
worship
they
God.
had this time of worship.
Yeah, when I was thinking about this week, it kind of reminded me even of like because it doesn't make sense, right? Like why do and when David rolled this plan out, I kind of had that same thought of like when Joshua rolled his plan out about like Jericho. It's like this doesn't make sense. But it was the pause time that David was trying to get him to understand. It's the worship to God. And we're not in a hurry to get this done. We want to do it in worship to God. What we're doing is got to be about the worship. And so they're pausing, making sure, hey, are we taking time to this reverence to God in these moments? That's so important for us to continue to do the work that God has for us to do. So they continued this next 6 steps after they worshiped.
Yeah.
And then they would worship again, then 6 steps. And so it's this pausing to worship God.
Yeah.
And it kind of lines up with even like our Sabbath day, right?
Slowed it down. It created rhythm.
Yeah.
It was a sense of before we move forward, we're going to pause and hit time out again. And you're right, it didn't make sense. And that's why Martha's looking at Mary going, this doesn't make sense. Like you should be helping me in the kitchen. And the rest of the world is going to look at you when you hit pause and say, I need to spend some time with God. I need to take a walk on my lunch break and just spend some time praying, or go out to the break room and read my Bible for 10 minutes. And people are going to go, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You're going to say, you're right. It probably doesn't to you, but it's needed.
When that's what Mary understood, was that this time spent at Jesus' feet, this wasn't laziness, this was worship.
Yeah.
She was spending time with him. So we want to embrace a new rhythm. We talked about that. And so Jesus modeled this balance. He served, but he also withdrew to pray. That we see that in Mark chapter 1, that there was this time that he would take to reset himself, take that time out, spend time with God.
Yeah, and so the rhythm, the balance of like, it's not a Mary versus Martha. It's a, how do I work and spend time with God? How do I get the to-do list done and spend time? How do I still have a nice dinner and have people over, but it doesn't stress me out so much that I have no time with God?
No, 100%. I think the challenge we need to have for ourselves is not measuring success by how busy we are. That's what we do. Like, oh man, my calendar's so full. I don't know that that's a good thing. Like, I don't know if is that what we're really going for? Or should we be saying, hey, like, how present are we with God? How much time do we spend with God? How much is God in our life operating, moving? How much time are we spending in the presence of God? I think that's what we need to be measuring as success.
Yeah, and if you're going to wait around for life to slow down so you can spend time with God, it's not going to happen. So
it's intentional.
Your homework is find the time. Where is the best place and the time to hit timeout? Don't wait for life to slow down. You choose to make space and time with God and say, I'm going to sit at the feet of Jesus and just consume the presence of God in my life.
Yeah, that's so good. Because I think when we do that, we're going to find something deeper than the rest that we're actually seeking. We find that renewal that can only come from Him.
So, guys, have good conversations about, even get down in the nitty gritty of where and when and how can I do this? Where should I read? Should I pray? Should I turn on music? Like, just flesh that out today and have this conversation, and let's deal with the tension.
Yep.
Let's deal with the tension that we have to spend time. We got to call a timeout, and we have to spend time with God.
All right, group leaders, back to you. Have a great day.
Have a great group. See you guys.